Welcome back. Cheers, fellas.
Cheers.
Cheers, gentlemen. Happy Friday.
Look at this, guys.
Happy Friday.
My koozie is a doppelganger.
Wow.
Your koozie made of beer.
Whose autograph is that on there?
You know, there's somebody, Nate, who came out here for Craig's funeral.
Burbach?
Burbach?
Yeah, and he gave it to me. He says, never lose this thing. And I'm like, okay.
He was just here. He was just here. He just got a new pointer puppy. Well, not a puppy, year-old dog.
Oh.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. I'm pretty sure I checked it at every 100. Hey, Kirk, what's up?
Wow.
I put the live comments on.
You get like the endurance award.
Let's look at some of the comments.
Well, we have a pretty killer guest this week. Land, where are you at right now? Are you over in Montana at your place?
I'm in Missoula, Montana, at the old Tawney household.
Well, that's a pretty good place to spend some time.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's damn hot today. It's like 88 degrees.
Here in North Dakota too.
I did a podcast with somebody today in Montana, and he said it was about 90 there.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like it's our first real warm day, and it's supposed to be 60 tomorrow. You know, so it's like
dip back down.
Yeah, feast or famine.
Yeah.
Doug, did somebody send me the bingo cards? Was that something that happened? I thought I thought somebody had tagged me maybe in the bingo cards for the Hunters Happy Hour, and I can't remember where they were at.
They would have been a couple of weeks ago. I think there was. I think Brock guy tagged us in them. So I checked into a whole bunch of different avenues, and the only way to mass produce them in the masses is to pay for a subscription. So I'm just going to take all the different spots, throw them out on social media, and you guys go out and make your own for free.
I like it.
I think everybody that played had liver toxification, and they just don't want to play anymore.
That's probably true.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I was curious because I mentioned North Dakota within the first 45 seconds, so I wanted to make sure that somebody was drinking on that one. So, I want to kind of get right into it a little bit, Land. You guys had kind of there's some big legislation this week that you guys have been pretty vocal about. Well, kind of tell everybody a little bit about that. I'd like this is a little bit of a departure from most of our guests.
Spit it out. Come on.
Most of our guests were sitting here getting hammered and we're telling hunting stories, which I totally want to do, and we can do that in the second hour. But the Great American Outdoors Act was up for discussion this week. Kind of tell everybody a little bit about that and how that whole thing's working.
Yeah, sure. So maybe every time I say public lands, people that are watching can drink. I think maybe that's a good thing.
That's a good one.
So go ahead there, everybody. Public lands. I guess I probably shouldn't drink while I'm talking. So this is like a rapid piece of legislation, and it combines two really important things. And the first one is really about the Land and Water Conservation Fund. Land and Water Conservation Fund is the #1 access tool in this country. I think it's one of the better tools for conservation as well. It's been used in like 99% of the counties, all the way from like, baseball fields and swimming pools to fishing access sites to large chunks of additions to public land. And Ron, that was for you.
I'm drinking tequila. Slow down, kid.
All right, yeah. And so there's
shirts.
Yeah, there it is. So the Land and Water Conservation Fund doesn't cost taxpayers a dime. It's been around since 1964. It takes money from oil and gas development in the Gulf of Mexico, excise taxes, and puts that back into conservation access stateside. And so it's been highly, supported. And this right now, my daughter just walked in. They're gonna be little kids probably in and out of here.
That's okay. Doug too. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, good. Yeah. So what we're looking for right now is full and dedicated funding. So in 1964, they said it should be $900 million that comes off as oil and gas development, basically taken away from something, giving it back to something other. And it's only been funded at $900 million twice. And the reason it's only been funded at twice is it has to go through this appropriations process. And so the legislators have to decide if they really want to spend that money. And so as of late, it gets about $400 million. And so this will be $900 million every single year in perpetuity for access and conservation. Absolutely
Right.
huge. I wish they would have done this back in '64, and so we wouldn't have to deal with this right now. But people are really putting their shoulder behind the wheel. So that's the first part of the bill. Super important. I mean, I can't underscore what that's going to mean going forward. $900 million a year. The second piece is really this backlog of maintenance. So there's been a lot of information lately about this backlog of maintenance on national parks. I think it's around $13 billion just alone on national parks. And so, I think it's because they haven't been care and feeding our public lands and giving them enough money to manage them. But we are where we are. So the other piece is $1.5 billion for 5 years for maintenance on our public lands.
Nice.
A backlog of maintenance. So that's pretty rad. And not only does that do with like national parks, but that's national forests, that's Bureau of Land Management, that's U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, National Wildlife Refuges. And so that's a lot of money in 5 years. Plus, I think they'll look at the investment. But yeah, absolutely gigantic. I would tell you, we are not here because Congress decided one day they were like, we should probably look at that bill again. It was because the people demanded it. And I think that's pretty cool. And this has been, not only an effort by backcountry hunters and anglers, but, there's folks all over this country and different organizations that have really put their shoulder to the wheel. But this has been our number one priority for over a decade.
Right. And it's got giant bipartisan support right now, right?
Oh, it's crazy. So, when we currently reauthorized it last spring, it passed 92-8 in the Senate and 363-62 in the House. So that was good. Just like making sure. Oh, it's rad. I mean, they don't vote like that anymore, right? They really don't. I mean, unless they are like, hey, it's time to go home. They might vote like that.
You could literally say, hey, we're going to pass legislation stating that the sky is blue, and you wouldn't get those kind of numbers. Because some guys would be like, well, today it's cloudy. It's not blue right now. It's like, well, no, but it is freaking blue. I'm telling you.
Tell me about those North Dakota sunsets, Tyler.
Ooh, there's more than blue in those. Yep.
Tyler's got pheasant tails sticking out of his hair today.
I do. They're behind me. My headdress is in full.
Looks like he's wearing a do.
I need something like that too because I got no hair either.
So as far as the political process goes, where are they at then?
Yeah, it's a great question. So right now, there's a senator from Utah named Senator Lee who has put up a ton of procedural things that we have to go through. And so I was talking to another senator today, and he's like, this is the most I've seen on any bill. And people, like his colleagues, especially on the Republican side, are not happy with him. But right now, we have one more procedural vote on Monday. What's been awesome this week is there's been votes so they can't add amendments to it, right? So Congress loves to screw things up, right, by adding all these things, and a lot of times that's a tactic, to add a poison pill that nobody can vote for, right? And so now it's going to be no amendments. They'll have one more procedural vote on Monday, and then we'll have hopefully final vote out of the Senate on Wednesday.
Wow,
and which will be a huge victory. And then we got to go over to the House. A bill has been introduced in the House, exactly the same language. And we're hoping, that we can keep that thing clean too, get that done. And then the president has said that he will sign a bill if it comes to his desk.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah.
So how often does it? Exactly right. Exactly right. For sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How often does it happen that something like that'll go through clean with no amendments on it? That can't be super common anymore either, right?
Not very often. Not very often. I think on this one in particular, you have Senator Daines and Senator Gardner. So Senator Daines from Montana, Senator Gardner from Colorado, both in pretty tough elections. Both are facing governors in the races. And so it's going to be a tight race. And so they went to Trump and they were like, we need something. And he's like, okay, what do you need? And he's like, we need the Land and Water Conservation Fund.
Nice.
And think about that. Of all the issues they could have picked, what did they pick? They picked public lands, and they picked this Land and Water Conservation Fund, this backlog of maintenance. Yeah. And so they need this as a win. And so they are fighting like hell to make sure that it does stay without amendments. Right. And I think from our perspective, we're like, yeah, we don't want any amendments because, one, we don't want it to get bogged down. And then there might be some crazy stuff in there that we wouldn't like, right? So right now, knock on wood.
I gotta. I was hoping for one thing. I wrote Debbie Stabenow, our state's. Well, I want to say something, and I got to interrupt anyway because I haven't talked in like 7 minutes. And,
Public land.
damn it! I'm trying to get a sentence out here.
Well, I had to switch to beer. Well, I still got tequila, but without,
Anyway.
yeah.
One of the things I like about what you guys do, and I'm sure other people do it too, but BHA and TRCP, you always have the easiest little link to go call. I always wanted to call my senator. I'm 62 years old, and for the first time in, I think at about 60 years old, I started calling Washington.
Yeah.
It's so
Awesome. That's
freaking
awesome.
easy. I mean,
A lot of times you can just leave a message.
You get a person, you put you through, you get your senator. And so now I did throw, we were talking about amendments. I did ask Debbie to slide my unemployment for another 2 years. That might be the only stumbling block. Because
you could just get a second job out here cleaning up some of our national parks, man. You'll be in good shape.
I want to ride this out. I'm going to ride this horse to the finish line.
I'm calling my senator tomorrow. We're voting that one down, Ronnie.
Oh. It ain't like it's going to add $1 billion to it.
Yeah, that's true.
I would say good luck with that. Right? Like, good luck with that. We totally support you, and I doubt that will make it like that's the line of the day. But I will tell you, like that phone call, like you're talking about, we had during the rendezvous that we had last week, we had a briefing with some chiefs of staff. One for Corey Gardner out of Colorado, who I've already mentioned, and one for Senator Manchin out of West Virginia.
I saw
the chiefs of staff were like, "You did all right," and we're asking them like, "What's the most effective thing to do?" Right, and so they get these emails, which is really easy to do. They kind of keep a number of those, but the things, if you remember, like the things that they talked about that were most effective are phone calls, man. And so like it's like this thing, right? And so like I think we use some text stuff this week to try to connect people that way. Mm-hmm. It's pretty exciting that a phone call can actually make a difference. And they just sit there and they keep score, right? They keep score and they tell their boss about that. I think they called it like the hot list, if I remember right.
Yeah, and kind of the crazy thing, I've talked to some people about that same thing, and the apathy in people it never ceases to amaze me, right? So, I mean, we talk about this kind of stuff all the time, and it's like, okay, go call somebody. And the amount of senators and congressmen that actually get phone calls for a certain topic isn't actually a huge amount. So, like 10 phone calls can really swing the needle one way or the other. Like it's really a very, very small amount of phone calls. It doesn't take like thousands and thousands of people to do it. I mean, like we're talking literally hundreds or less.
I totally agree.
Being raised in Chicago, I voted once and voted often, so I borrowed a bunch of people's phones and kept calling. That's okay.
That's awesome. Very well put. No, I think like the phone calls, yeah, I mean, like you're exactly right. Like they get a lot of emails these days, but phone calls like stand above everything else. And so fairly easy thing to do. I think the first time, a couple times you do it, it's a little scary. But really you're talking like almost 9 times out of 10, you're talking to somebody that's at the front desk, right? Mm-hmm. You may get a legislative assistant. Sometimes you're not going to get a senator unless you know him probably. But they're keeping score, and like, let's just know that. And I think, we don't have, big loads of cash, right? Like we're not like all of us aren't like pouring cash into like campaigns and stuff. We got the people, man. And like the people, like you just said, like 10 phone calls in a day, that rises to the top. Like on that hot list that we're talking about. So that's the thing, I guess anybody listening to this right now, if you think your voice doesn't count, man, it's because you're not using it. You got to start using it.
Sure. And I was listening to Ron's podcast earlier this week, and he had Morgan Mason on, who's actually working for you guys now. It was a really good podcast. Yeah. And he was talking, and I think Ron brought up the fact that somebody told him that actually, yes, there you go. During these times where everything's so polarized and everything's so like extreme one way or the other, and nobody can agree on anything, and nothing's going through anything, like there's no bills getting passed. This is the time to actually kind of run through the bills like this, because just, this has got so much bipartisan support where there's people of all different, political backgrounds that are calling in support of something like this to actually, it's like, okay, well, yeah, I'm a Republican congressman from wherever, and I had 10 Democrats and 15 Republicans call me today about this one thing. It's like, okay, well, this is definitely something that I really should pay attention to. It really doesn't take that much.
Yeah, and I think that's because the people have demanded it, right? I mean, I think public lands, they don't care what political party you're from, and so like, I think it's taken the people to say this is what we want, and I think like knock on wood again, like we got a ways to go on this thing,
Right.
but I would say like the reason we're at right now, like, where we are, is because of the people, and that's like to me, that's super impressive, and only means better things to come, I would say.
Sure.
Yeah. It kind of feels like your vote counts for once instead of just.
It really kind of does.
Instead of canceling out another vote.
Yeah.
It feels like, wow, we all voted in the same. Yeah. It feels like we the people.
Well, that's the way.
That's the way
it should work, right? That's the way it should work.
That's the way it should work.
What's
Absolutely.
I'm going to let you market this. The back of the public landowner shirt should say "We the people."
It should.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna steal that. Is that? Did you copyright that, or are you giving that to me?
I'm gonna let you have that.
Hunter's Happy Hour owns that.
Oh man!
Well,
You-
put a small H.
Anything recorded tonight?
Anything recorded is intellectual property, and you are not trying to steal it from us. So
No, that's
We have some very astute watchers right now. Jeff noticed that Nick shaved. So
Well, it's hard to
there we
tell
go.
for everybody, so he's asking for clarification, which, yep, I did, Jeff. Took it off. Took it all the way down to bearskin.
I know it's hard to tell from last week when you
Yeah.
had 7 weeks there. But
It was a lot to mow through, I'll be honest.
he had like 7 hairs is what he had. It wasn't 7 weeks, it was 7 hairs.
my
I
mistake.
had to find them all first before I could shave them.
So I got to ask you.
mustache growing inside my right ear.
We should talk about a transplant someday.
So I got to ask you, Land, were you a little bit concerned about so one of the things I was concerned about was the timing of this whole thing. When the COVID-19, this whole like the stimulus package, all this kind of stuff is going through. Was that something that was kind of concerning to you guys where it's like, okay, we're spending a lot of money right now on stuff. Maybe this isn't actually going to happen. Was that something that you guys were worried about, or is that something that you guys just kind of thought, you know what, we have so much support for this, let's just jam it through anyways?
Yeah, yes, there's been some nervousness about this, especially because before COVID hit, I mentioned this meeting already that Cory Gardner and Senator Daines went to President Trump. We're like, we need the Land and Water Conservation Fund. And then he goes out and tweets about it.
Right.
Like, that's the window, right? Like, you're like, that's the window. And then all of a sudden this thing happens. And so it's been like, I've been working on this thing for 20 years. It's like, oh, no, this is going to happen. And, then we've gone through the COVID. And I think, just like, you remember like when the government shutdown happened a year and a half ago, like over Christmas and like, and then when they came back, one of the first things they did is they did some public lands legislation, like literally one of the first things they did. Yeah. And so I had some confidence, again, because the pressure that's been put on by the people. And I think the political, climate that we're in, especially with Senator Daines and Senator Gardner, I had pretty good confidence it'd be something they picked up right away. I did not know it was going to happen this fast. I would tell you that. And to be honest, we'd have, this vote done if it wasn't for Mr. Lee right now. And so we're going to next week.
Well, elections are coming up. Is he up for election this year?
He's not. And he also lives in Utah where he's pretty secure. And so
yeah,
I think, there's some long-term things there, that need to happen. Our chapter is growing by the day in Utah. And, it's such a like outdoor recreation kind of state,
Mm-hmm.
And so I think along with hunters and anglers and, folks that ride mountain bikes and climb and backcountry ski, I would hope that there can be a kind of a coalition of people that can start to push that in the right way.
Yeah, for sure. We had a Congress, or it was a North Dakota senator. Like it was somebody from like in state government that proposed selling back the Corps of Engineers land down along Lake Sakakawea around the Missouri River, and he just got defeated in a primary last Tuesday. So,
do you think that played a role?
Good work there.
Do you think that played a role? Like,
I would hope so.
I
honestly don't know, but I would hope so. Other than like 12 people that actually pay attention to this kind of shit, I don't know that anybody else noticed. But I was like, are you kidding me? Like, that is one of my favorite places to go hunt pheasants. No, we are not. No. Like, just because we have a lot of oil here, and now that nobody cares about that anymore, it's like, no, we're not putting oil wells on Lake Sakakawea. Come on now. Like, settle down.
I've caught fish out of there, and I would say like what you're describing is one of the reasons why like we have what we have, right? People have their special places that they don't want messed with, right? And I think like, this shirt that I'm wearing, this public landowner, like we all own like 640 million acres, and there's those things in your backyard that you're like, man, this is my special place. I got a ton of them within like 20 minutes of my house.
Yeah.
And it's like, do not touch those. And so I think like what your sentiment you just like talked about, I think is like what people, the growing, like as more people know about like, public lands in general, they're awakened to this stuff, man. And it's like, don't mess with it.
That's personal connection.
Yeah. I mean, we have so many memories tied to those places where it's like, okay, no, this is a deal breaker. I shot my first pheasant here. I caught my first fish there. I've whitetail hunted there. I've done whatever. It's like, no, this is where we draw the line.
Yeah.
Land on that 900 million, that pool of money. I imagine the ways that it can get used. It's probably a pretty extensive list. Could that involve like acquiring new public lands, or there's probably guidelines around how that gets used?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's like a complicated formula that each state gets allocated this money. And so it has to do with size of your state and then the population, right? So states with more population, they get, a little bit more there. States like Montana that, we have 1 million people in our state, but we are the 4th largest state. Like that skews out a little bit on that side because we're bigger. And then there's this process, especially for large purchases, where there's like this nomination process, and then senators actually then like endorse like these places because they know the people on the ground, and those are usually the projects that go forward that are bigger. And so, the states can use, like I've mentioned, that the fishing access sites, like here in Montana, 70% of our fishing access sites are paid for by the Land and Water Conservation Fund, and that's all state access, right? So that's what they've really focused on, like fishing access sites, which again can be used if you're a duck hunter or you want to go hunt like pheasants on islands. Like these fishing access sites are rad, they're not just for fishing. But there's a complicated formula that talks about like the bigger places, and then there's like this division between the states as well. But so far, man, it's been working really well. And I think, rural America in particular, I don't think you go to rural America and find like a swimming pool or a baseball field that isn't paid for by the Land and Water Conservation Fund.
Gotcha.
Right? It's like they don't have the tax base to pay for that, right? Yep. And so they've been able to use these funds to do these things. And so there's a list, I think it's like lwcf.org, and you go to that and you click on the state, and it'll show you every single project that's in there, and it's pretty impressive.
Cool.
That was a good drink, Ron. That was impressive.
We were waiting for you to chime in. I think your 7 minutes is up.
It's so hard when we got a guest on that can actually carry the show. I start going like, I can just sit back. Land's got it covered.
Hey, don't get your hopes up. It's like the first 15 minutes. I'm only on my first beer, so like with
the program, because you already made me drink 2 saying public lands already.
I love that you're adhering to it.
Well, you don't have to drink a full beer every time somebody says public land. Every time somebody says public land, you can just have 1 drink every time somebody says public land.
Okay.
Clear distinction there.
And white girl wasted.
Right.
I will say that Ron is probably taking proper drinks, though. He's not just sipping.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Fair enough. Hey, Land, we have a question here from one of the people watching us. Will state BHA meetups still be happening, or anything on a larger national scale in regards to BHA, assuming stay-at-home orders stay lifted? Do you guys have anything planned for the future?
Great question. So we just got done with our rendezvous, which is usually our big, huge party, and where 1,200, 1,400 people come from across the country. We did it virtually. Actually had more people, which was awesome, but it sucked not to be able to, that energy that when everybody gets together is something that it's hard to describe. So going forward, so June 15th, which is, I guess, next Monday, or this coming Monday, that's kind of like when we kind of lift it up for our state chapters. And as long as they're abiding by local rules and state rules, we can start to have events, right? And so we're kicking, like pint nights has been something that's been super popular. Here in Montana, we're in stage 2. And so it's no more than 50 people can gather. Something that we can do right now. Our Hike to Hunt just started, which is like this program that we do. We're going to try to like raise awareness around public lands and get in shape and raise a little bit of money. And, groups can go out and hike together. So there's a ton of stuff that's happening here in the next couple of weeks, just because we've been kind of waiting for some of this stuff to release. But, it's going to be up to what the states, what states decide. And we've made a real conscious decision. Instead of trying to we've encouraged states to keep public lands and public waters open. But we've made a real conscious decision that we're not the experts. We're not health,
Sure.
I stayed at a Holiday Inn last night, but I'm not a doctor. And there's been so many conflicting things, right? Many conflicting things about this that we encouraged them to keep them open. But now as they're starting to open, we're happy about that. But we didn't really fight, I would say, any of those closures just because we
Sure.
didn't know, man.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of one of those better safe than sorry kind of scenarios. It's all of us, every single one of us that are on here right now, we were all at Pheasant Fest in February. And it's entirely possible that I had COVID-19 while I was at Pheasant Fest in February, and I probably shook 1,000 hands. So I may be the epicenter of this entire thing, but I certainly don't want to be that again. So, I'm really hoping that, if once things do start opening up, I hope that everything doesn't go haywire in hunting season. But we just don't know.
Yeah, and I think, again,
Tyler, are you sure it wasn't just those
Go
2
ahead.
bags of cheese curds we ate on the way through to Wisconsin?
It could have been all the cigarette smoke from you driving all the way to Wisconsin. That's a real possibility because I was secondhand smoking 3 packs a day. And then between that and then the Project Upland guys took me out and got me housed on Thursday. I thought it was a hangover until midday Friday. And then it was not. It was not a hangover. I was very sick, and I had to hop myself up on Dayquil every day to go down to the show floor. So, but it could have been the cheese curds. I haven't ruled that out, Ron.
They affect me in strange ways.
Yeah.
Hey, but how that was my first Pheasants Fest. I've seen lots of pictures and videos and stuff. That was pretty sweet, man. I the whole public lands pavilion that they have was pretty sick.
Yeah.
But the dog parade was just fantastic. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was the first time I'd ever been there too. I was a Pheasant Fest virgin, and I don't feel that I got to enjoy it to my full potential.
Dude, we did that together, man. We're
Right?
virgins together. We broke it. Yeah.
Sure.
And I didn't get sick. What does that say about you?
Oh God. Thursday night was so much fun, but when I was drinking scotch on the rocks at the bar after the film festival, and somebody's like, "Let's do shots," and I was like, "I'm going to get an Uber back to the hotel." I'm drinking shots. I'm literally drinking shots on ice. That's all I've been drinking all night long. So
You did ghost us pretty quick after that.
yeah, I was like, "Nah, that's all right, guys." And then I was sick, so I was like, "Well,
Yeah.
yeah." I thought for a while it was a hangover, but it certainly was not that.
I just recorded a podcast with somebody yesterday who the last time I saw him face to face was at Pheasant Fest. And we were just talking about how weird, which is the same place I saw all these guys last face to face. It's just so weird. That seems so long ago.
Seems
and so
like
much
a lifetime ago,
so
doesn't it?
much has happened since Valentine's Day. It's just wild.
Yeah, what was that? It was over Valentine's Day.
That's
you
that's
dudes are cool,
Pheasant
but
Fest Pheasant Fest in Minnesota. They got super pull. It doesn't matter.
Dude,
I'm making sure that only real men show up at that place. Okay. So you're talking.
So
guys
that's your description of a real man. That's your
somebody who
real
doesn't
man.
care about
He
Bailed
leaves his
on
wife on Valentine's Day.
That's a real man. We gotta talk. Yeah, I remember my wife, and we don't go out for Valentine's Day anymore. But she's like, "Oh, you're gonna be gone on Valentine's Day." I'm like, "Well, you want to go out to dinner tonight?" And she's like, "Well, this was a week and a half before that because I was only home for one day in
Right.
between the 2 trips."
And I was there. Yeah, it couldn't be real romantic. I was sleeping in your upstairs bedroom.
But yeah, they'd have to think that one through a little bit. It made it difficult. I'm sure it made it more difficult on some of their employees and volunteers than it did on people who are just going.
Well, yeah, and
Gone.
oh no,
Empty.
oh no. Hopefully you got another one.
I got to switch to beer after this one.
Oh jeez. You started with gin. You didn't finish with gin like you
Don't they
normally
say?
do?
Don't they say liquor before beer? You're in the clear, something like that.
Something like that.
It's a saying for sure.
It's definitely a saying.
Somebody has said that.
Yeah. Were they right?
I don't know
No.
if it's a guarantee.
When I
Did they
grew
have a
up,
problem? Oh yeah.
if you said liquor before beer, you got slapped in the face.
That'll keep you sober.
Well done, Ron.
What's the rendezvous recap, Land? You mentioned it, but how you had more people tuned in, but obviously you weren't there, but everything went smooth.
Yeah, we basically put on this small TV production for a week. We had Sawyer Connolly, who's been working with us for a while, had no idea about the platform like a month and a half before we started it. And were there some small mistakes? Yeah, but overall, it was pretty sweet. And
Cool.
Our regular rendezvous, the biggest thing is bringing people together, right? I think that's our biggest deal. And so while they had to kind of come together and they had shared experiences, from what they were experiencing, but also they got to be on the chat, kind of like tonight. And so people were just saying hi to each other and having these side conversations, not sometimes paying attention to what's going on.
Yeah.
But it was pretty sweet to bring everybody together. And the feedback we've got has been absolutely phenomenal. Besides one person that got mad when one of our former board members, Rachel Schmidt, started asking people what their favorite way to poop in the woods was. That was the only negative comment we got. And
she got it from Meat Eater. That's all that those guys talk about. They've been talking about shitting in the woods for the last 3 months. It's crazy. Every single podcast, that's what it's always about. I love it. I'm not talking bad about it because we've all done it. And Ron's a freaking expert. So they should have him on as their shit expert. But I'm telling you right now, that's all they talk about.
I could write the book on it.
Well, there's so many techniques, right? And so it was funny, but literally, we were laughing about it, but that was really the only negative comment that we got. The people that stepped up and did seminars for us, our storytellers, that was awesome. We did a trivia night that was absolutely sick. We had 600 people participate, so that was a lot of fun. And I was surprised that people stayed with us through the week too, right? There's all this energy that starts at the beginning of the week, and you think, okay, that's going to be our peak. We had on Saturday night, we did Patagonia's film called Public Trust, and there was almost 700 people that watched it live that night.
Wow.
Now you could have it for 24 hours, and then you could watch it again this last Thursday. But that to me, I think is pretty rad. That people on a Saturday night, especially in the spring now, we can kind of get out, I think on the weekends you're trying to get out and do something.
Yeah.
That was great, raise some money. I think we learned a lot, I think there's things that there's a lot of people that are I would never been able to come to Rendezvous and I really wanted to come, but this actually helped me get there.
Right.
And so I think we'll have virtual stuff going forward. We've talked about before, this kind of forces you into that. Our sweepstakes is absolutely killing it right now. And so that's something we've never done at Rendezvous, an online sweepstakes. Our corporate partners do. We got guns in there. We got coolers in there. We got Traeger grills. It's absolutely crazy what we have in there. I think it's $11,000 or $12,000 worth of stuff. And so that's been really good. We wouldn't have done that. But no, it was I'm not as tired as you am from a rendezvous,
Sure.
I could be on the entire time, and it's 8 o'clock in the morning till midnight at least. And so it wasn't that, but we were all still pretty exhausted from it just because there was so many moving parts and so much angst about is it going to work. And quite frankly, I think it went really well.
Yeah. Awesome.
So I think Tyler, when he kicked us off, we got right into business and we kind of missed a glaring question that we probably ought to ask up front. But for those that may not know the full spectrum of what BHA does, can you just talk a little bit about what your position is and then kind of the mission of BHA and what your goal and kind of your mission statement is?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm the president and CEO. It's been 7 years now, and it's been an amazing, amazing ride. So we first started around a campfire in 2004, and it was some folks that looked around the campfire, and they looked at Pheasants Forever, the Elk Foundation, Ducks Unlimited, Mule Deer Foundation, all doing amazing work, but nobody was focused on public lands and public waters. And so that was really the impetus of this organization. And I know that all of you have probably been around a campfire late at night and solved the world's problems. So we come from kind of that stock. little whiskey involved. And the idea is to try to make sure you have access to public lands and waters, and then the fish and wildlife habitat when you get there. And, you know, it's these 640 million acres that everybody that's listening to this owns in this country. That didn't happen by accident, and it's not going to go forward by accident either. And so our jobs are to work at a local level, to work, you know, with district rangers, work on travel management plans, work on access issues, do cleanups on our public lands, to a state legislative level, where you're working with state lands and policies that affect, you know, public lands, all the way out to Washington, D.C. And, you know, we've already talked about this huge thing that's moving right now in D.C. And, you know, what separates us, I would say, from all those critter groups is that we're not really like buying habitat and, you know, and putting that into like public ownership. Like, we're creating opportunities for that, like Land and Water Conservation Fund. That's really, you know, that money that we spent or that we contributed, you know, to at Pheasants Fest, through the Public Lands Pavilion, to this new public land, the Cupido, I guess, wildlife management area in Minnesota. That was the first thing that we've ever done like that, right? Like, we do a lot of cleanups and, again, a lot of like advocacy work, and that's kind of our bread and butter, is education and advocacy. And, you know, as we were talking earlier, like, people, like, they might hunt on public lands, but they don't know where it came from. They don't really know what it is or who manages it. And so the more they get educated about that, the better advocates they can be, right? They can figure out, like, you know, that this is my spot, or this, you know, legislation, Land and Water Conservation Fund, could help me get more access. And so the more engaged they get, or educated they get, I think the more engaged they get. So that's, I think, our fundamental job. But we have 40,000 members across the country. We got chapters in 45 states, 2 Canadian provinces, and 1 territory. And, you know, we're growing like gangbusters, and it's been an awesome, awesome ride. And I think the people, like, literally, it's the people that get this done. I'm just lucky to be a part of it.
It's awesome.
All right, as long as we're still being serious, because we got 23 minutes of seriousness. You said something, and I've mentioned it on several episodes over many years. When I moved to Michigan, and my buddy Jeff took me grouse hunting, I met him on a job site. He had a German Shorthair pointer, and he asked me if I wanted to go. Well, he called it pad hunting. And I'm like, yeah, you know, just met the guy, became my new hunting buddy. He took me all over the Manistee National Forest, which is right here, literally at a mile from my house it starts. And I thought for about 4 years that he just had the best access to people's property. That there was no sign. You know, this part of the Manistee is just chopped up into, it might stick out into a road. You know, there's no corner markers. It just happens to be Manistee, and he just pull off the road, and I'd be like, man, if I know he's been living here his whole life, but this guy is connected.
He's got some good spots, yeah.
Good spots. And like years later, I started at least admitting, so I'd tell people, don't be ignorant like I was. But it's like, we were hunting, like, we never could run out of spots to hunt, and it was here, but I was one of those people that I didn't know. I literally did not know. And so then I it's not that I didn't value it. It was just that, like, I didn't get engaged to make sure anything happened. I didn't know, you know. And that's one thing I like, always spreading the word. And I think the more you say it, the more we drink. Public lands.
Public lands.
Yeah.
I mean, Ron, I would say, like, the thing you just said might be another, like, t-shirt too, like, connected, right? Like, how lucky are we that we have this kingdom that we all have the keys to, right? Like, we all have the keys, and, like, no other place in the world is like here, you know? Like, Canada comes close, New Zealand, but what we got, man, like what you just described, like, we are connected, you know? Like, we're in the mob.
Yeah, you can. You could weave your way from state to state and find a place to hunt.
Literally, you can. Yeah. I hunted from here all the way down to Arizona last year, and after I left North Dakota, I didn't hunt anything but public land, and I killed birds every state I stopped in.
That's pretty awesome, man. That's pretty awesome.
So I got to ask you, when did kind of the modern day assault on public land start? Like, what was like
the day after they made National Yosemite?
Like, I mean, like, I remember when I was a kid. I mean, not that I was particularly plugged into politics, but you never heard so much of the rhetoric in the 90s and after. I mean, you heard a lot of other rhetoric around different things, but as far as like the whole sell back the public lands, all that kind of bullshit? When did that kind of start?
That's a great question. I mean, back to Ron's point, you know, we put Theodore Roosevelt up on Rushmore, and he's really revered, right? Like, people like fought him like hell when he first started kind of this public land estate, you know, back in the early 1900s. And, you know, people from Montana and Idaho and Wyoming that were senators like fought him because they wanted to rape and pillage, right? And so that was like, just think about like, that was like when birds, like market killing was going on birds, whether that's to put them on the table or put feathers in women's hats. Like, birds were in big trouble. Like people wanted to exploit these resources, what I'm trying to tell you. And so like, it's always been around. And so I think you're exactly right. Like, mid 90s into the early probably 2000s, like, you're not hearing much of it, but it's under the surface, right? Like, it's definitely under the surface. And so I remember like probably 2000, it was like 2001, 2002. There was a congressman, I'm trying to remember his name, from California, that proposed selling, like, same thing like Congressman Chaffetz did. And he proposed selling a bunch of public lands. And I remember there was hearings. I remember going to a hearing. I was just out of college, just starting my career. And we had a hearing here in Missoula, and there was like 400 people that showed up to this thing, and we're like, pitchforks, like, hell no. And so that was like, I think, the start of it. And his name might come to me in here in a second, but he got beat up real bad, and then he lost his election the next go around, right? And so that was kind of like early 2000s. He loses. Then it's pretty quiet. I would say, you know, this modern kind of push was probably first started by the Bundys. And, you know, when the Bundys decided that you know, $1.35 an AUM that they're paying is too much money, and they shouldn't pay the federal agencies, that's kind of like this, like, you know, the big middle finger to the federal government that I think started this like kind of modern day sagebrush rebellion. And just to like, he got put on an island, you know, there wasn't any stock grower organizations that came out and supported him. There wasn't like cabins associations that came out and supported him. And state leases are probably like $15 an AUM. Like, private is 20 north. Like, $1.35 is the best deal in the world, and that's why nobody came to his aid, right? Like, it's like this partnership between, you know, the public, the federal government, and like these ranchers to like have, you know, like an opportunity to like make a living off of raising cows. But I think, you know, he kind of wouldn't pay his fines, and then in particular when he took over the National Wildlife Refuge in Oregon. I don't know if you guys remember that, but the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge, and you know, it was during a shutdown, and so there was nobody there. But he took it over by force with guns, and like, you know, they hold up there, and like,
what was that?
What was it like? Man, that was
like
a good question. I'm
14,
horrible base. Like, it was like
2014, 13, something like that.
No, it was a little bit later, because like it's 2020 now. I gotta say like 2015 or 16.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was 16 maybe. But like, yeah, and you know, and I think that created some awareness. I think this T-shirt, Public Landowner, really came out of that. If you remember, like the rhetoric from what they were talking about, I was there like, you got to return this to the people.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
the people already own this shit.
Exactly. And like duck hunters pay, like, you know, now it's $35 every single year so we can duck hunt. And it was a national wildlife refuge, right? And so like the management of that place, the purchase of that place was paid for by hunters and anglers, and then belongs to the people, right? So when he's talking about returning it to the people, they won't exploit it, what they want to do, you know? And so I think that was a big one. And then when Chaffetz a couple years ago tried to sell 3 million acres of public land, you know, introduced a bill, that was the awakening, you know? And that's like, I haven't seen anything since that has really risen. Oh, it was a big time slap, man. Like, I mean, he got bitch slapped in a week, like, to where he was like, I mean, if you remember, like, so like he introduces this bill. We do like a Facebook Live thing. That's like when like Facebook was trying to like, you know, really promote Facebook Live, and had like 500,000 people on it. And then like Joe Rogan picked it up, Stephen Ranella picked it up, Randy Newberg picked it up. I mean, like all of a sudden it was like this, you know, quote unquote viral, and like he got just it handed to him. And so a week later he comes out like on Instagram where he kind of got
found out to be a pedophile.
It might have been worse, like it's both, right? Like the combo. But he comes back, and like, I mean, to that point, He's dressed up in like full camo. It looks like the tags are still on this camo. And he's holding this dog like in this hunting picture, right? And this dog's got, if you see, remember the picture, like the dog's ears are like, let me down, stop touching me. Like, I don't know if you know if it was his dog. And like, he does this post and he's like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry. I should have not introduced this bill. And like, mea culpa. And he used like the hashtag keep it public. And I will say that like 2 years before that, he introduced the same bill and didn't even get any of that, hardly that backlash. So within those 2 years, like the Bundy kind of stuff happening and like the awakening, there's been a huge pushback. But, you know, there's a organization, this is back to like your point, that is kind of building to that point called the American Land Exchange Council. And they were introducing legislation in all these different state legislatures across the West at the same time, like, you know, and this legislation to basically dispose of or transfer public lands. And it was very cookie cutter, but at the same time, Bundy stuff is happening, same time Shea Fitz, they're doing that at a state legislative level. And so it's all these pressures together, I think, that really awaken people, and that's where we are right now.
I got an editorial. You guys ready for this? I actually wrote a note. I think I have an interesting take on this. Like everybody, you know, like, and not to go political, but everybody knows like how divisive politics is these days, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just, you know, in Washington, they don't go to lunch anymore. Back in the day, I heard senators and stuff on shows, and you know, they'll do old interviews. You know, across the aisle, they went golfing together, they went duck hunting together. Well, here's the bad part about that: they made all them deals about resources and drilling and lumber. They made all those deals on the golf course, and we didn't get to know it. So maybe in some weird ass way, the fact that they now hate each other and there's about an even amount of them, it's like somebody shined a light on the cockroaches.
That's a hot take with Uncle Ron right there.
Let's have a drink to that one.
I'll drink to that. What I will say is this idea of compromise is such like a dirty word, right? Like you're a sellout if you compromise. But what you just described, Ron, where like two dudes are getting together, you know, they're sitting in the duck line. They're like, man, I really need this, and you really need that. Like, where can we meet in the middle? Like, I wish they did that more, right? Like, you know, like, and obviously that we would know about it, but like that collegiality that's been lost. Right. It's absolutely embarrassing.
Yeah. If they could do that, and then we could still have the internet where we can find stuff out quick, it would be it would be great if they could. You know what they should do? They make us wear masks and they make us, you know, stay 6 feet apart. Why don't we make them all go hunting and fishing together?
You know? Actually, something that they did.
I'll tell you what. Put them on one of those things my buddy Frank did. What was that program called back in the day for kids that were in a little bit of trouble and they go hiking up in the mountains for 28
Scared Straight.
What was it?
Scared Straight.
No, no, that's when they keep you out of prison, Nick.
Oh yeah.
Outward Bound.
Yeah.
Outward Bound. Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Yeah.
So a buddy of mine who was always kind of an adventurer, he was 20. I'm gonna say 24, 25. He heard about this thing somehow, and he went on it. And every night around the campfire, it was like an AA meeting because all these kids had, you know, they were either in not orphanages, they were in detention centers or drug parents, or it was to get them in the outdoors. 28 days. You know, some of them were whatever degree of drug abusers or drinkers they were. And poor Frank went there because he wanted to hike the Rockies. But that was his only reason. And every night they'd have I don't even think they had fires. I think it was a cold camp. And every night they'd sit around and talk. And it was like an AA meeting. They'd say, Frank, do you want to tell us why you're here? And he goes like, I just wanted to hike the Rockies. He goes, all right, maybe you'll tell us tomorrow, Frank.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, we get Outward Bound set back up again, and we make the senators. If you want to be a senator, you got to sign up for Outward Bound. 28 days in the wilderness. You don't have to hunt or fish. You can pack in all your own food. Pack out your food.
They did that a couple of years ago with Martin Heinrich from New Mexico and Jeff Flake from Arizona. They were like, literally, I think they got dropped off on an island together. Yeah, like
yeah, they both wanted to be there though.
Well, kinda, but I mean, yeah, they wanted to be there, but it didn't mean that. Like, I guess if anything, it did just prove that if Democrats and Republicans are dropped off on a desert island together, they can figure out a way to survive. I mean, like, there's that, But I thought that they were going to do something. I think I heard that from Newberg when I was down in Arizona with those guys, that they were talking about doing some sort of basically like a campfire sort of idea with some of the Democrats and some of the Republicans that all do enjoy outdoors, and kind of get them together in kind of a place with no cameras, basically, and just be like, okay, let's sit down, let's have a couple beers, let's do something and see what we can figure out. Yeah.
I say they make them all do it.
I would
it's only
say
100 people. There's only 100 senators. Come on. You can find
I was just gonna say, if you are not somebody that like campfires and you don't want to sit around you're out, you're automatically kicked out, you can't be a senator anymore. You can't sit around a big bonfire.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. That's like one of the bars you gotta meet, sitting around a campfire. How hard is that,
Right. You don't even have to hike all day. Only the cool senators go hiking, right? But you are damn well going to sit around a campfire from dusk till dawn.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Let's do it. I like that campaign.
I'm going to call that number 202-224-3121 and tell your senator, go out and camp.
That's right.
Would not be a bad campaign.
No, it wouldn't. Somebody could run on that. I could run on that.
Run on that, Ron. I'll vote for you.
I think you'd win. You guys heard it here first.
That's right.
Now, are you running for dog catcher? Are you running for city council? Are you running for senator? What's your aspirations?
King. I'm
king.
You're
to be king of Twin Lake.
No, take us back in time.
And my daughters will be princesses.
How lucky are they?
Well, I'll tell you right now, Ron. After all the grief that your guys' governor got over there over the whole not letting fishermen go fishing thing, you have a pretty good chance of maybe getting into the governor's mansion.
Oh, I can.
That's something you should look into.
They'd write me in tomorrow.
Other than the fact that there's a lot of different things out there about you saying things that are probably a little bit disqualifying, but
Few skeletons here and there.
I keep a very low profile.
That's just Ron being Ron. No big deal. Ron being Ron.
Boys will be boys. Ron will be an idiot. Don't worry.
You got to know.
He swam naked in Chicago. It's fine. He just does this.
Everything else we should be apologizing to him. He had to do that.
Yeah. I tell you what, Mike says he might vote for Ron. What do you mean might?
I would love that would be part of your to
Look at this one.
Vote for me. What are you talking about?
Our buddy Ted, who was on the show here a couple months ago, he said he saw you hiking to the M on Sentinel Hill above Missoula at dawn with his kids last July. He said you looked kind of sweaty.
I look kind of sweaty?
Sweaty a little bit, yeah. He was a little concerned.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm a fat kid, and Project Fat Kid starts tomorrow. And last year I did, what was it? It was I think I did 400 miles in two months. And
nice.
So that's on the docket again this year. And Project, if it works, which it absolutely does, then I'll be slim and trim come hunting season.
There you go. That's the way to do it.
I put on
the ultimate goal is try to maintain, eventually. But I do these yo-yos every single year, man.
It's hard not to drink a lot and eat a lot in the wintertime in the north. There's nothing else to do.
Here's the thing about I'm a master. I've gained weight and lost weight. This year I put on the COVID-19, and as long as you don't throw out the fat pants,
I haven't heard that yet.
You can adjust. You just adjust. You just pull out.
But there's always
38s.
38s.
But I would tell
38s.
you. I would tell you. There's always that when you do lose all that, and then you're like, I'm never going back, and then it just creeps and creeps and creeps and creeps.
I am not going to have another beer.
Yeah, right.
Before the hour change.
I'm not going to have another beer before 9 o'clock.
Hey, Ron, which Pike Gear shirt is that you're wearing?
You know what? This is strange. How do I do it? This way? No.
No, that's some sort of custom job there.
Yeah, he was doing some designs early on, and he's got that orange shirt, and they are super comfy.
Yeah.
Like, it's like stretch. Like, you can't, if I had a bra on, I could unhook it, And I don't know why he didn't come back.
Is that an if question?
It was a prototype, and I guess I'm waiting for the next one to come out. Yeah.
I got a Pike Gear gift card. I got to use it tonight. It expires tonight for my RGS AWS promo.
Yep.
Get the Kiowa shirt. You'll like it.
I think I'm going to get the Kiowa shirt. Yeah.
Get the shirt. And trust me, pants, like you're a thin guy, right? And
check me out.
Well, I didn't say you didn't have little biceps, but
fuck you, Larson. God damn it. I feel attacked here, all right?
You went to the gym, you work out.
Like, seriously, you got to remember this. I love Brent, but Brent, he's been losing weight this whole year. But when you shop for clothes, at some point you had to hit the husky rack, and that's a turn back from.
Again, I still feel attacked. Why are you attacking me?
Listen to this. Back in the day at Sears, we went shopping once a year because most of my clothes came from my cousins because that's how it was in the 50s and 60s. You didn't throw clothes out, you handed them down. And at Sears in Roebuck on 63rd and Western Avenue in Chicago, this is where my mom and I would take the bus and, hey, public transportation, public land. There's a tie. And we go there, and there was a husky. It was husky. Like, the jeans were like, so they early on had like Sears and Roebuck knew that the kids were already starting to get a little fat. So if you want like Wranglers or Levi's, they had them. But if you wanted Sears jeans, they came in regular and husky.
And now so it's a lot more politically correct.
Right.
Big and tall. All right.
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah. I don't even know if you can say husky anymore.
Oh, I didn't think of that. My bad.
I got a serious question for you, Ron. I got a serious question. When you went to that Sears in Chicago, was there a rack that had a sign above it that said swimsuits, and it was just a bunch of hangers with nothing on it?
I got to write that down. I'm working on a monologue. Swimsuit rack. Thank you, Nick.
Land, I don't know if you're fully up to speed on the swimsuit reference, but Ron was part of this goofy era in time where he had to do swim class, Chicago Public Schools. They swam naked.
And it was voluntary.
Yeah, and we reference it on every episode.
Thanks, Doug. No, it wasn't voluntary.
So that was like the swimming one earlier, and then I'm getting more of a reference.
Yeah. We
was this like a nunnery?
No.
This has made every one of the 12 episodes, just so you know. We have not missed an episode where we talk about this.
You would think, like, with the way that the world works nowadays, you would think that it would be Catholic schools with a bunch of young kids swimming naked, but it's not. This is public school.
They have still never brought.
I will say, Nick, that was masterful. Nick, that was masterful in how you weave that in, by the way. That was really good.
Thank you. I've been working on that one.
I wrote it down. I'm going to use that in my shtick. Trust me, I'm doing the keynote for NAVDA in January. I'm working that one right in. I'm working that right in. Thank you.
Are you wearing public racket there, Nick?
Suit racket, Sears.
Go.
Yes.
Nice.
Sir.
Yep. Close enough to public land.
Yeah, that's close.
I was looking for that one. I think I wear it this weekend. It's all dirty. I love that shirt.
It's a good one.
Yeah, I got one of those too.
Yeah.
Are we gonna take a little potty break for the top of the hour kind of a deal? Come back for happy hour? Are you guys good to go?
Right here in the jug, like when I'm driving, so it doesn't matter to me.
You're good?
He's already done it twice.
I'm good.
Yep. Well, I'm good. I'm taking a break.
Okay.
Take a break for like 2 minutes.
Right.
I'll be back.
Perfect.
I'll take a break, and in the meantime, please call your senator at.
Ron's going to keep everyone entertained. We'll be right back.
3121. Seriously, I'm not kidding either. You can call your senator any time of day or night, and you're going to get the switchboard, and you're going to get at least their voicemail. So do it. Do it. I'm not going to leave you there. Oh, he's peeing that close to the camera. You hear that? It's got to be Tyler. All right. Who is peeing that close to their camera? I want an answer on this. Oh, God. Well, you know what? We'll know. We'll know by who's back first. Ooh. I gotta get my Miller koozie. You think that's now, Nick, you're guilty.
What do you mean?
Well, when everybody cleared and I stayed here, I heard somebody peeing.
Not me.
Whose toilet was that close to their computer?
That's maybe Land with the headset on. Because mine's too far away.
Because it was like, wow. Nothing like
Going
sound effects for the potty break.
All right, I'm gonna order my Kiowa shirt right now.
Yeah, no, try. You will absolutely find it so comfortable. I know where I was going with the Husky thing with the.
Yeah, what were you gonna say?
Well, the Pike pants, they're like a stretchy material, which if you're a little, I don't mean roly poly, but if you go up and down in weight a few pounds, they got a little bit of give and they got that stretch. So you never feel like when you button them, you're like, oh, dang it.
Yeah,
they're
nice.
kind of forgiving, but you probably don't. I bet you whatever, if you wear a 32 or a 34, you can probably wear that in just about every pair of pants and not complain.
Yeah.
But the shirt, you'll rock this shirt.
Gotta get my code.
Hey, Lan, were those Bluetooth headphones? I don't know who it was, but I heard somebody ping when they went away from the computer. I'm not sure who.
It wasn't me. I took my headphones
It was
off.
Lan.
It might have been me. It might have been me. I didn't turn my headphones off, and as soon as you said it, I was like, "Oh shit!" I turned it off, but it was too late, and I was like, "I know he's gonna talk about it," and I was like, "I'm either gonna deny it, or I'm gonna totally complain." It was me. I think it was.
So
me.
you could hear us talking about it, Ron. I love it.
God.
We had to listen to Ron pee on his podcast every episode for 2 years. So you're good, man.
I had a guy.
I remember the first time I was like, "Is he pissing in a bucket?" Yeah, he was peeing.
I'd keep a coffee can, and when I'd have a guest that I didn't really know, and he was interesting, and I didn't want to interrupt. In fact, the first one I think was Craig Koshik, the author from Canada. And so I'm sitting like this, and my mic would be set up where my computer is, and I'm like, my bladder is dying, and I can't tell this stranger that, hey, hold that thought, while we have, and I would just kind of keep talking, like, yeah, and I had no idea that Zoom directional microphone could pick it up. Guy came up to me at Fest.
It was like every other episode for 2 years. I was like,
no, because I switched over to a bigger bucket where I had more circular.
Oh, you think we couldn't hear it, but we could hear it. Trust me. It was often.
Oh well.
Well,
at least
cheers,
you
guys.
Second hour.
I'll tell you, Tyler, we had her out
happy hour begins.
doing some upland stuff with Luna yesterday, and her steering wheel is coming along nice. I'm excited to get her out there with some pheasants.
I thought you were going to say it was broken.
No.
Okay. Yeah, it's like everybody else's steering wheel here then.
So are you keeping her in what, 20, 30 yards? When
you're I can give her a little bit more because she's got a nice draw and a really fast whistle sit. So if I can see her getting birdie at 40 yards, 45, I can whistle sit her, and she's really responsive to the whistle.
45 yards, you're at a pretty far shot.
Yeah, but I can whistle sit her when she gets birdie until I catch up.
So
Nice.
you're gonna have to learn to read her better. I mean, not better.
Oh no, I can. Yeah, you'll know when she's birdie. She flags like a.
Her eyeballs
NASCAR.
go in the back of her head.
We have
No,
we have a guy here asking what Land's drinking. Lee's asking.
So it's like this. With the camera.
Don't say it. We don't need any more drinking.
It's a public land beer. It's brewed by the Missoula Brewing Company, and also known as Highlander, here in Missoula. It's only available in Montana right now, which is a shame. And we haven't really figured out how we can ship it legally. We've had a couple like UPS guys and FedEx guys tell us just put it in there and don't tell us it's beer, but we haven't shipped any.
Oh, it happens with weed every time. Like I work for the post office, and you would be amazed at how often I'm sorting packages, and it's like, oh God, and then you look at the return label, it's Colorado, and you're like, of course. Like, you guys are like, come on, like, figure out something. So yeah, nobody gives a shit.
Brett, yeah.
Story is that policy? Nobody gives a shit.
I mean, like, that's my policy. It's like, yeah, like, I'm hoping that
It's in the code of conduct book.
So I don't have to smell it all day long. But you know, that's just that. You know, I don't make it ride in the back, and I'm not telling anybody. So whatever. Hopefully, my bosses are paying attention.
Hey, Land, we got to go back. We got to start. Last time you and I talked, I don't want to say this, but Land and I were in a cheap motel over in the east side of Michigan last year.
That's
pretty
awesome.
sketchy.
Yeah, well, it was a Red Roof Inn. They allowed
Very
nice.
shady meeting. Very shady meeting,
Yeah.
for sure.
We talked about your dog, and you were concerned about some hard mouth problems. How's the dog doing? How's your dog?
She started the year all right, and then I think it's this goose thing, man. This goose thing, like where she got into a goose halfway through the year last year. She
Beat her a
retrieved
little
it, but
bit?
well, like that's like when she was a puppy, it happened. So she was doing pretty good with the hard mouth. Like I lost a couple. I mean, she was puncturing a couple of breasts, but it was better, I would say. Like for a while, it was just like chomp every one.
Yeah.
So it was better. It was probably like one every like 4 or 5 birds, you know, she put a little something in there. But then this goose happened, and after that, the rest of the year, she was just on it. And that was discouraging, I would say. And so, Ron, like, you asked the question, like, you know, I think I got a forced fetcher, and like we talked about that too, right? Like, you know, and I think, I mean, you even did some things, you know, with your young pup that day that I've been working on her a little bit on, but I think I gotta take her somewhere and have her force fetch, because they say that might be the only way to fix her. And if not, like, you know, then I got a dog that's got a hard mouth. It totally sucks for eating, because it just like restricts like all the different ways. I mean, plucking birds, you get so much more flavor, you know, especially with ducks.
I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world if they puncture it, but it's obviously you would like them to not do that, you know. And then you really got to take care of like, I know a little piece of shot might go in there, but if you got like dog saliva into the meat, you're going to have to skin and prep your bird right there. You know, you want to get it cleaned and rinsed out or salt watered, and, you know, that's a pain in the butt. And I don't know, you know, that's something I'll ask Justin about hard mouth. We haven't discussed that in a long time. And there used to be a whole lot of wives' tales, you know, get like a wire brush and make them fetch a wire brush. I'm like, well, the dog ain't going to want to, you know. There's
It's
a lot
not going
of
to pick up anything if you do that sometimes.
There's a lot of bad information out there, but I'm going to ask him about that. You know, like if there is, my thought was like doing the hold and carry with a frozen bird and then a soft bird.
Yep.
But I'll find out, because it's not like you're one in a million out there in the world. You're one in a hundred. You know,
it can happen with pointing dogs too. I've seen it happen with pheasants. I've seen a dog get spurred by a pheasant one time, and every time that dog walked up to a pheasant after that was still flopping, it was giving it the crunch. And it's like, God damn it, you know. And it just happens where that dog got spurred right across the face, and it hurt real bad. And same with a goose, I suppose, or it just got wing whipped a little bit. But yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. But like Ron said, like I might clean them up pretty quick. I mean, maybe I missed some of that saliva, and that's why I got like some dripping out of my chin right now. I kind of got like these dog tendencies. I'm a little like twitchy,
Sure.
like especially when I see birds. But we're dealing with it. I will say, Ron, the other thing that happened when I met you is I had to go to the bathroom really bad when we got there, and I was like, hey, can I use your bathroom? And he's like, no. And I was like, well, can I piss on your bed then? And he breaks out laughing, and like his dog had just pissed all over his bed. So like I walked in just like, and Rod, I hadn't met you. I'd heard that you like you're kind of like good timing dude. And so like I was like, I'm either gonna like give shit to him and like, or he's just gonna like totally like beat me down, and I'm not gonna be able to go to the bathroom while I'm here. So thanks for letting me pee on your bed. That was pretty rad.
No big deal. No big deal.
So I don't know if you're familiar with, I'm sure you're not familiar with what we do here, but so the first hour is kind of where we talk about business. The second hour is where we talk about fun. So like you mentioned your dog. We had a guy ask what kind of dog it is. And then we also just curious, like what kind of hunting do you prefer to do?
So it's a black lab, which I know is going to cause all sorts of problems.
No,
but it's a black lab.
No apologies.
Okay,
seriously, black labs matter. So and on top of that, we are we're on episode 12, and I think I'm sure we've had more lab people on than we've had pointing dog people, like for sure.
More?
All right.
I think so.
Well,
yeah,
we've done all right.
Yeah, like we're very inclusive here. We
That's
like
great.
everybody. We like all kinds of dogs.
I mean, isn't like black lab like the most popular breed like in the entire country by like
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah,
that's like
It's because they're awesome.
percentages
though.
a little bit.
Number one registered dog.
Who the hell doesn't want a lab? They're awesome.
I mean, I grew up with them, right? So like my first dog ever I got when I was 5. I remember like my dad getting this black lab and we bring it home. I'm 5 years old and I hear it whining downstairs. Like I crawled over the fence and like slept with that dog that morning, that night. And my mom gets me up the next morning and I've got like poop and pee on me and I'm just like in heaven with this dog, right? So I've been a black lab guy ever since. Like I've thought about, like I've dreamed about other dogs and maybe something that ranges a little bit and hunts, for some big country. But man, I'm a lab guy. I'm a lab guy for sure.
So I would be, honest to God, if I could find one, I'd get a golden retriever, if I could find one. And I know they're out there.
I mean, point you in the direction of a couple of
harder to
lines.
find, but a golden retriever raised my 3 daughters. I was on the road, and that golden retriever raised my 3 daughters along with my wife. I'm telling you what, that dog was 90% humanoid. If I could get a golden retriever that hunted, I'd quit with these silly hounds and pointing dogs and cocker spaniels. I just have a big old golden retriever that says, "What do you want?" Like literally could understand English. So they're the number 2 dog.
But see, like as a lab guy, like I'm not like I wouldn't even consider a golden retriever like ever. Like if I was like gonna do something else, it'd be something like a wire hair or drop hour or something. They're like big and rangy and get out there and get those sharp tails like in that big country, right? I think that's like you asked about like what kind of hunting I do. That's probably mostly waterfowl, and then like pheasant and sharp tails and grouse. Like I do a lot of grouse early season. Like I love hunting roughies and then blue grouse up top. It's a lot of fun. But ducks, man, like I grew up duck hunting with my dad and with labs, and that early morning stuff is something special. And I think that, my first dog's retrieve was a sharp tail, though. This dog that I have now, and we shot that over big open public land. And I think that's the biggest limitation of a lab, right? Is like that big open country. Like you want them to range, as you were talking about earlier, that 45 yards. But if that 45 yards they're bumping birds, like like you're in trouble.
Yeah.
But
it's a lot of work.
I'm a lab guy.
It's a lot of work to keep a high energy lab in that range, right, Doug? Right? Yeah.
Oh, you'll see.
I had problems keeping a 22-pound cocker in gun range last year. Well, that whole program went south on me. Oh man. Hey, if you want to see some entertaining training on my website, we've been putting up the Taffy Talks, and she's been steady to pigeons and throwing birds, and I'm like, damn. And then she's so soft mouth. Sorry, Lan, but she's just one of them.
Yeah, thanks. This is like putting salt in my wound. This is awesome.
My bad. But he will take his clipped wing pigeons and throw them out, and they land down. And then he gives her the retrieve command. She brings them back. There's not even a feather wrinkled on them, and gives them back to her. And so I imagine I can screw that dog up in a couple of months before hunting season, though.
For sure.
Oh yeah.
So we had a guy here a few minutes ago. He wanted to ask if your real name's actually Land, and then this guy down here underneath, he said first name Land, middle name Access. So
That's a good one.
Never heard that one before. I'm sure.
No.
Don't tell my wife. Don't tell my wife my middle name. So I took this job in 2004. And was like, man, public land is rad. And so my first name used to be Doug, and I changed my name to Land.
well, we got a Doug. We need.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, my name, like from as a little kid, was Land. I mean, when I was born, and I'm named after.
He's muted.
You can't mute our guest. Don't mute our guest, Doug. Come on.
How did that happen?
Well, Doug got offended because you picked on him.
And you're cut out.
Sorry, Doug. I actually did.
That's
When I was
strike
in middle school, or when I was in grade school, people would make fun of me all the time too. Like in water and mud, like every kid gets made fun of, but that was bad. And so I wanted my name to be Doug, totally for real, dude. I wanted my name to be Doug.
Because you
So I don't know if that makes. I hope that makes up for what I was talking about earlier. But no, I was gonna say, do you guys know who Charles Lindbergh was?
Yeah.
Spirit of St. Louis, flew across the Atlantic Ocean for the first time, right?
Father of the Lindbergh baby.
Yeah, right. The one that got stolen, kidnapped, I guess, and never found. He has a son named Lindbergh that lives here in Montana, and so I'm named after him. He lives up the Blackfoot Valley, which river runs through. It's about, and you've probably heard of that. But Lindbergh is who I'm named after.
Really?
Huh.
That was that movie actually made me come to Missoula. That was the only time I've ever been to Missoula in my life, was after I watched that movie. I literally packed up my truck the next day and drove to Missoula. Fished the big Blackfoot. It was awesome.
Catch anything?
Exactly.
I did.
It's the worst thing for Montana. That was the worst movie for Montana.
Yeah.
I want to be like Brad Pitt and oh yeah, both of those. And they both had Brad Pitt in it, you know?
Yeah. See, and I never had any illusions about being Brad Pitt, but the fishing looked good and it was really pretty. So
you're more like the brother that got accidentally fell asleep in the sun and got sunburned.
that's the guy. Yeah. The guy who was having sex with the hooker. Yeah, that guy. That's totally me.
I didn't. That was you. That was you that said that, not me.
Yeah, it's it drank all the beer that they sank in the river. That's
Clear
absolutely me. Yeah, I do love those movies though. Those movies are both fantastic.
I can't not watch it if it's on. I'm like, all right, I guess I'm gonna have to sit here till it's over.
I gotta rewatch Legends of the Fall. I haven't seen that one in a while.
It's
Legends of the Fall might be even better, right?
Good.
Jim Harrison wrote that. It just passed away. I don't know if you guys have read much of Jim Harrison, but if you haven't,
he's
got his
I didn't know he wrote that.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
I didn't know he wrote that. That's wow. Well, that makes a lot of sense.
That's the way he made himself and then wrote the screenplay and got quite a bit of money off of that. But he's got multiple books that are just pretty rad, all set pretty much in Montana.
I got The Brown Dog, I think it is. I was reading last summer.
That's a great one.
Yeah. So on the name subject, one of my Patreon patrons, I can't remember how long he's been with, and his first name, and I'm not making this up. I could take a screenshot. I pulled it up on my other computer. His first name is Field. Just like
nice.
a cornfield, a hayfield. Field, Perrow. Not Perot like Ross.
You mean he was a Patreon sponsor?
Well, until now. So apparently, you can be named after the elements, the terra firma. So anyway, that was
Land has confirmed it.
I share that, and like we got a cousin out there somewhere named Acre. That's like the land and field like baby. Maybe not that, the cousin. God, this is getting weird. Second half.
Hour two, man.
Hour.
Yeah,
all
you
good.
can't help it. You got to get out of the way.
Hey, Brock guy actually understood why your name is Windy Kid there, Ron. He got
Really?
it. Yeah, he said it has nothing to do with your birthplace. It has everything to do with your GI tract.
Saw me on that episode of Meat Eater, then farting the whole time. That's what it was.
So
That was it.
being out in Missoula, do you do any big game hunting as well, or is it just mostly birds?
No, man, I do a lot of big game hunting. And so, I mean, just think about where Missoula is too. Like we're in between two flyways. Like I go hunt up north of us for like pheasants, but I gotta, I can do grouse around here, but I gotta hunt sharp tails and that kind of stuff. Like it takes me a couple hours to find that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But big game. We just had some tags come out today. I got a doe tag and I got a cow tag. Way more excited about the cow tag just because the meat, you get so much more meat, and the food is delicious. But yeah, I mean Montana. I mean, there's so much to do. It's like you couldn't. If I decided to try to do everything in Montana the rest of my life, I wouldn't even come close. But big game opportunities are pretty rad, and I grew up with horses and mules, and so spent a lot of time in the backcountry chasing around critters. And
did you grow up in Missoula?
I grew up. I moved here when I was 5. I was born in Helena, which is our state capital, and so a couple hours away. But I've been in Missoula ever since, besides college. But I'm living this is like the house that I'm in right now is my grandparents' house. We bought that 10 years ago.
Nice.
So my roots are here, which is pretty awesome. And the town is changing, but in some ways it's changed for the good, and in other ways not. But I've got. From my house right here, I can probably do almost anything I want within 30, 40 minutes, besides go chase sharp tails around.
Yeah.
Cool.
Is Missoula suffering I shouldn't say suffering, but experiencing what Bozeman has, like people moving in, getting out of the big tech jobs and moving to Missoula and buying up property, or is it still pretty like Missoula?
Yep. Missoula's not as crazy as Bozeman. Right, like Bozeman has that like Yellowstone kind of influence.
Yeah.
Right, so Yellowstone Park, and you got like the Yellowstone Club, you got Big Sky Ski Area, like these really high end kind of places that bring in a lot of people. Missoula hasn't necessarily experienced that kind of higher wealth, and we haven't had as much growth either. And so houses are still pretty expensive here, and real estate, it's going through the roof, and so it's. That is very similar, but not quite as bad as Bozeman. But we're a close second in Montana.
Do you think it's going to bleed up to you guys? Continue.
I think. As much as I don't want to, Ron.
Yeah.
I think it's going to.
Yeah.
Especially right now, when people are kind of reevaluating their lives, right? And if they can do stuff remotely, why wouldn't you live in a place like Missoula?
You're going to Missoula.
Yeah. Exactly. And so. As a kid that grew up here, some of that is hard, but our downtown is pretty sick. We got 2 rivers running through town, and better restaurants are coming. And
a river runs through it?
I would say something.
It does. Yes.
Oh, well, we should do a movie like that.
Bam, bam.
I may or may not have spent too much time in downtown Missoula the night that I was there, and I'm not going to say I threw up into the river, but it was close.
Ooh.
Gonna put that out there.
That's not clean water.
You're supposed to pack out your own puke.
You know what? I couldn't help it. It was very little puke at that point. It was a lot of whiskey, a lot of bourbon. It was diluted.
Yeah, our downtown, we got a pretty sick music scene. We had somebody come in here that's invested a lot in venues. So they redid an old theater, and it's a 700-person theater. They did a smaller venue, and they got this amphitheater that's about 3,000 people. So
nice.
We're attracting some pretty sweet music right now. Yeah,
it's awesome. I don't know where this where Mike got the idea that hashtag can't hang, but I'm just telling you right now. I'll fucking outdrink you any day of the week. I'm gonna put that out there right now. He's been razzing me all episode. This guy, I tell you.
Mike bought a Public Grouse t-shirt. Nice job, Mike.
You did, yes.
Supporting a good cause.
Yeah.
And you know, like,
So
I think that puking, you're just puking and rallying, right?
yeah, pretty much.
Right.
So from Helena though, there's pretty decent sharptail hunting not very far from Helena, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can get. I mean, the Rocky Mountain Front, which is like I think one of the sexier places in Montana, right? It's like so it's where the plains meet the mountains, and it's super dramatic, right? It's super dramatic, but you have like these rolling hills, and you can hunt sharptails in there.
Right.
And to have that big, those snow-capped mountains in the background, and it's like the Bob Marshall Wilderness, which is like 1.1 million acres. You got grizzly bears that are roaming the plains there. So these are like the plains bears that like Lewis and Clark messed around with. So these are like 1,000-pound bears. So when you're hunting like cover in particular, you gotta like kind of like you gotta be paying attention a lot. That's like probably the closest place I go hunt sharptails, but you know, eastern Montana, I mean, I'm not going to give exact spots, but like I would say like Lewistown, Montana, which is smack dab in the middle of the state. And like I drive there from here, it takes me 5.5, 6 hours to get there, and that's only to the middle of the state.
Right.
Around Lewistown is some pretty awesome hunting as well. And that's where I've probably done the majority of my hunting for sharptails in particular. And then some
We hunted
sage grouse over there as well.
We hunted sage grouse not very far from Lewistown. Yep, we were up just north of there, I believe, and then we actually hunted blue grouse not very far from there either, or dusky grouse, I guess it would be what they would be called.
We call them blue grouse.
Good, yeah. They're big.
But yeah, no, that like I mean that Lewis, like we're up on the like the Charles M National Wildlife Refuge, like up there. It's like that's like 1.1 million acres up there. And you have like the Upper Missouri Breaks Monument up there, and then you have. We're lucky we have block management in Montana, which is public access to private land, and we have almost 8 million acres of that enrolled. Like 8 million acres of private land that the public can use, and some of that there used to be this ranch called the IX Ranch that was up by Fort Benton, and it was like. Man, I took a guy there, and he killed his first pheasant, his first sharptail, and his first hun, all in the same drainage. Like it was like that property is no longer enrolled anymore. But like block management in Montana, you know, it's pretty sick.
That's the stuff you sign into, right? The little blue slips or whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're green, but they're like green. So you have like that's like type 1, and then there's like a type 2. That's like, or no, type 1 is like no sign in. Type 2 is a sign in, and then type 3 is like lottery. You know, like you gotta either like you gotta call or like you gotta show up at a meeting. And they pick people out of a hat.
Yeah.
But those are 3 types of block management. Yeah.
I was in Montana with Matt Ranella years ago. We were getting ready to do a TV show for Steve's first show that nobody's ever seen. Well, you guys have probably never seen. It was called The Wild Within, and so we were going to get ready to do a episode on the Missouri Breaks on a canoe trip, but I got there early, and Matt took me on some of the what you saw the number 1 stuff where you didn't have to get permission; you could just go out on it.
Yeah,
and so this rancher had some horses that were just basically feral horses, you know. And I had horses for a while. I'm afraid of horses. Okay. They see the fear. They see the fear in me.
They can smell it. They can smell the fear.
Oh yeah. And I had Artie. So this is 13 years ago, or 12 years ago. She was a little 1-year-old pup, you know, before she had all the saggy problems, you know, before she had litters. And I left her at Matt's house while we went and did the episode, but. So Matt and I got to go hunt around for 3 days, just screwing around, getting shit ready. And I'm just going to warn people, if you go on BLL, if you go on those block management access areas, there could be livestock on that property, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're still grazing it. They're raising. And this horse comes over a hill chasing my dog. And my dog is running to me at a speed that a Bronco has not formally run before. Okay? And he literally jumps up onto my chest like this, like, oh, God. Here comes this freaking stallion, just looks like My Friend Flicka, but from a Freddy movie. I swear that horse's hooves had knife blades on it. I had a 16-gauge double barrel, and this horse is coming for me. And I just angled it right over. I went, boom, boom. And the horse stopped. And then Matt said, "What'd you do that for?" I said, "The fucking horse was going to kill me." No, it wasn't. I said, "Prove it."
That particular piece of land is no longer in block management. It's actually
that freaking horse scared. I could see the devil in its eyes, and it was running like what was the one that run the Triple Crown in 1920? You know, that never
see something.
Yeah, Seabiscuit.
Yeah,
it looked like fucking Seabiscuit in the long stretch. It was just coming in, broom, broom, and steam was blowing out of its nose. He was going to kill me. Now, I did not. No horses were hurt in the making of that story or that day. But I was that scared. I was that scared where I took both barrels and popped them into the air in the direction of the horse, and it did stop the horse. And I said, "Matt, let's get the frick out of here." You know? So
yeah, but then already that's been said that property is no longer in block management. So thanks a lot.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. My bad. Hey, that one's on me. Okay, that one's on me.
Just saving people's lives over here.
That's a big animal.
I still think, and okay, here comes a drink alert. I'm just going to grab my beer right now because I'm going to talk about North Dakota for just like a brief second. I just put a pinky up there, but so here in North Dakota, we're gonna end up facing another vote this coming year on the trespass law that is going to try to make everything basically like Montana, where you have to have permission in writing to access any piece of land you want to hunt on. If that does happen, I hope it doesn't. I'm going to try to do everything I possibly can do to make sure that it doesn't happen, because it's going to end up hurting our state in the long run as far as out-of-state $100 go. Yeah. But if it does, the block management program is a really good program to follow suit on. One of the coolest things about block management that I've noticed is that there's actually certain I'm not sure if it's type 1, type 2, or whatever it is, but certain pieces actually tell you what you can and can't hunt on it. So it's like, okay, you can hunt sharp-tails, huns, sage grouse, pheasants, but you can't hunt deer, elk, or pronghorns. And that's actually a pretty cool idea on the way that they did that, because there's a lot of people out there. I mean, this is like most of us on this show, and including you, Land, we're pretty passionate bird hunters. Most people don't really give a shit about bird hunters. You know, like if you want to go out and you want to go chase, you want to walk 10 miles or 12 miles for sharptails, you know, go have at it. Yeah. So the way that they actually did that when they actually made the program was actually really ingenious.
Yeah. So I would say two things. Fight like hell, right? Like fight like hell. Like that trespass law in North Dakota. Like
we're 9.5%.
Just described it.
9.5% is all the public land we have in North Dakota, and we the amount of $100 that come in here from non-resident hunters that come in here and support small communities like I live in, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt real bad in the small communities the asshat that I was talking about earlier that suggested selling back the Corey engineer land down along Lake Sakakawea, he was one of the people that actually was backing that bill, and he just got defeated in the primary. So hopefully that guy is not the whoever gets elected in that seat is not going to have that. But with that said, I mean, it's been really, really close for a couple legislative cycles. And when I actually talked to you for the first time at Pheasant Fest, that's what we talked about. It's, it's a big thing, and this is kind of the last state where this is the way that it is. And we're one of the only Western states that has as little public land as we do. But like I said, the BLM's a really nice compromise if it does have to go there.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, again, fight like hell, you're never going to get that back. Like we had that, I think, until 1985 in Montana, and then we did a compromise, one of those compromise things we were talking about earlier around stream access, and then, it kind of gave up some of this, like this trespass law stuff. But, as a waterfowl hunter, in North Dakota, where I can go scout birds and go, look where there's, a huge duck tornado going down or a big goose tornado.
Yeah.
How rad is it that you can go, drive around and find that? And if it's not posted, you're ready to go. And if it is posted, nobody cares that you're hunting waterfowl. They're like, they kill them all, you know.
Right.
Like it's like that has been amazing. So like hell, I would say, you know, like your POTS program in North Dakota, right? Isn't that's your public access to private land program?
Yeah.
What do you?
We were starting to have some prep as well.
Okay, I've hunted that plots program and had some success, but I haven't hunted in a few years. Like, what do you think about plots? Because it's very similar to block management.
It's a little bit similar, but there's definitely a lot of room for improvement. So when it first started, it was really actually pretty bad. There were a lot of pieces of plot land that the farmers were getting paid for public access on fields that were completely barren. Like there was zero actual huntable cover on those pieces. In fact, the worst one that I ever seen, it was actually a summer volla field. It was literally dirt. There was nothing out there. Every slough had been plowed under, and that farmer was getting paid. Now, with that said, that was 10 years ago, and they've actually made some refinements to it, and it's coming, like it's progressing. It's getting to be a little bit better, but it's such a small percentage of the land that's actually out there that, like, if you go down to Kansas where you can walk-in hunting access, Weehaw land, there's a lot of those places that are there's like several pieces that are together. So there's a lot of that.
Right.
Whereas here, it's a lot of times it's 1/4, where it's 160 acres and a piece of, thousands of other acres. And you can, the thing that makes it really nice is that there's a lot of places where it's 1/4 that they get paid for, surrounded by like 4,000 acres that just isn't posted, which is awesome. So like, it's fine. I would actually be a lot more in favor of it if they did it a little bit more. If they did it a little bit more like you guys, where they would go species by species, because there's like the landowners up here, just like you said, they don't care. It's specifically waterfowl hunters. They're like, kill every freaking goose you've ever seen because they just eat our crops. They don't care about ducks. They don't really care about huns and sharptails. They may care a little bit about pheasants because they may have some family that are hunting up here. But if they wanted to change that, where they could enroll a piece of property where it would be a species by species, like Ron's seen it. The first time Ron ever came up here and hunted with me was like 2016, and he was up here the first week in November, and we were literally seeing places that were posted that weren't posted the week before because our deer season was about to open. That's the only thing that they care about. That's the only thing that the landowners actually care to hunt about. So the plot program is fine. We're starting to see a little bit more CREP. There's a new CREP program that's going on in North Dakota that's actually a little bit better, I think. But it is what it is, and it's not bad. It's not great, but it's decent.
What's the difference of that CREP program?
The CREP is an enhancement project, so it's going to be. Go ahead, Ron.
Do you know the answer? Or are you going to wing it?
Well, I kind of know the answer, but if you know the actual answer, go ahead.
Well, at least in South Dakota, okay, so you got CRP that obviously just because it's enrolled in CRP doesn't mean you can hunt it in South Dakota.
Right.
It's just in CRP. But what they've done is the municipalities have raised funds to give that rancher a few extra, or that farmer a few extra bucks on top of their CRP payment
to open it up.
So they're saying, hey, we're going to sweeten the pot a little bit, and that's because I remember that when I first went to South Dakota, we'd see a CRP field, and we like, how come we can't hunt on it, And we had to realize that just because the farmer enrolled in a CRP program, which is good for the ground and the soil and the pollinators, doesn't mean you can hunt it.
Right.
So, but they went to those farmers that were, open to being in CRP and said, hey, how about, literally be like a township or let's say a county would say, hey, we put some funds together to sweeten the pot a little bit. And then the farmer says, okay, I'm already not using it, and I'll be okay if you put that sign up and then you can use that. That's at least what I know in South Dakota. And I would imagine because it's conservation reserve enhanced program.
Yeah, and so okay, I shouldn't say anything because I don't know for sure, but I do know that they're paying landowners, but it's for smaller pieces. So like I know that Pheasants Forever has been they've been promoting this a lot in North Dakota, where it's like, okay, you have say a quarter of land where there's a bunch of potholes and spots that aren't going to be really they're not going to be good farmland anyways. So you can actually enroll smaller pieces into like CRP programs where it's going to be basically like paying farmers for smaller portions of their land instead of like half sections or quarters or whatever. But again, like don't quote me on that. But in those few areas, I seen one of those last year down in the southwest corner of the state, and it was crawling with pheasants. There was a lot of pheasants down there. It was it was nice cover. There was it was a crop field, but there was a lot of extra cover that was left. And you'd kind of like, okay, so Ted Summers is Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program.
Google machine.
Yeah, there we go. A lot of options, cost sharing, as opposed to CRP, which is long-term incentive for one particular area or field. So, yeah, but it's the one piece that I did hunt last year that was crep was really nice, and I did kill a lot of birds out of that. So maybe I'm just biased, but
I think one thing I would add to this is something we talked about for a long time, and this will be voluntary, but
right.
through like the Farm Bill, like conservation programs, whether that's CRP, CREP, Wetland Reserve Program, like there's all these different programs. It would be rad to add like a piece of that, like on the way they score it. If you allow access, like you get extra points, right? And so like through the federal program, and if like you want to get chosen, one of the ways you get chosen is say you're going to allow public access,
right?
So that you get more points, like right. And I would love that would have to be done, at a federal level, but it'd be pretty sweet. I mean, what you're talking about, Ron, how the municipalities have gotten together, and said, hey, like this is good for our local economy. It's like Christmas, the entire hunting season, as far as people coming in and spending money. Like that's awesome, but like it'd be sweet to see that at a federal level, just in a scoring. Like it wouldn't cost any extra money, just in a scoring kind of place.
Yeah.
Right. And like
South Dakota, if all these restrictions we're living with and starting to open up, and if it all falls backwards, and all of a sudden who knows what's going to happen? Like a state like South Dakota, and I'm sure North Dakota, Kansas, but South Dakota is still that most. It's not because of. It's just got the reputation of more out-of-state hunters go there. If they couldn't get together and go hunting in South Dakota, that state's going to go like.
They do have Mount Rushmore, which helps, but other than that, they don't have much.
That's going to be all they got left.
Right.
Is Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, I think of like when you like fly into like any like airport in South Dakota, like it's like pheasants everywhere, right? Like in the airport, like like the memorabilia, like all that, like just like the ambiance of the decor, I guess. It's like all. I mean, think of that economy is huge.
Yeah, huge. I mean, it's a
huge.
It is. It's huge. It could it be triple huge? It could be.
I think it's on the cusp. It's on the cusp of triple huge.
Triple huge. That's big. Grand. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mark actually he says and Sturgis. So if they would have Sturgis during pheasant season, that's where we're at right now. I mean, like
explosion. It'd be an explosion.
If you could have your Harley Davidson during
your shotgun
with a scabbard, for
absolutely.
I'll tell you something about. I'm going to tell everybody a little story about South Dakota. It's so weird. All the states have. You think that it's kind of like phone chargers. Why can't they all just have one phone charger that works, right? Why does one have to? How come my Android won't work on the iTunes and the old Android won't work with the new one? That's how state laws are about hunting. So North Dakota, of course, I hunted southern North Dakota before I ever met Tyler, and we were all excited because we found out that, if it's not posted, you can hunt it. Problem is, south of the interstate, But South Dakota, the beauty of South Dakota is it can be posted like a son of a bitch, and you can hunt those unimproved roads.
Yeah.
And you take a truck around 1 mile, which takes you 3 miles to get there, and there's 66 feet of road, right? Or at least in Michigan, it's 33 feet center line to out. And they don't mow it, and the crops are in, and the birds are in those. You can go to South Dakota. You don't have to knock on a door. If you got some buddies and you want to tromp some unimproved roads, it's a game changer. So those Harley guys going to Sturgis, they can have their shotgun. I don't know. Could they just turn if they just turn the motorcycle engine off, which I can't stand the sound of a Harley anyway. I think you got a small
coasting.
If you're driving a Harley with a big muffler, you got a small penis. That's
a strong statement.
I heard it here.
If you're not trying to draw attention away from your penis. Okay. Anyway, I digress. So if you're on your Harley with a scabbard, with a shotgun, could you turn the engine off? And if you could straddle and your legs were tall enough,
touching the ground,
touching the motorcycle, could you shoot?
I would think, yeah. I mean, you're not like it's not. I don't even think you'd have to be straddling it. I mean, I'm not 100% sure on this. Like this
on or in your vehicle.
But I think out in Maine, you only have to have 1 foot on the ground and you can start loading your gun. I remember that from Northwoods Law. Yeah.
Damn it.
One foot.
So I would say two things. I would say the first thing is it's like you need to get a sidecar for that Harley so you can put your dog in there, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that would be pretty rad.
Little binoculars.
And then yeah, oh dude, like yeah. Well, I don't know about binoculars, but maybe like
Rec spec.
Rec specs. Yeah.
Mass. But and then the other thing I would say is that like hunting waterfowl here in Montana from a boat, like you can't like cut your engine and like as long as like the you're still like being propelled by what was there, you can't do it, right? So, yeah, like as long as as if you're coasting from that actual engine, then you're in trouble. But if you're just drifting, you're fine. So maybe that's like the threshold with your little motorcycle thing here is it like you have to be they have to be stopped, like you have to be stopped or something, or like 2 feet on the ground. I can't believe the 1 foot on the ground. Like I don't know how many people probably died because of that law. That's like ridiculous.
Your gun's still tangled up in the steering wheel.
Here, hold my beer, and you're like you're out the car with your shotgun. Like, yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So in the boating world, what is the barometer for a man with a small penis?
Yacht,
talking about
obviously.
World?
It's got to be a yacht or a wake boat.
Yeah, because like we know, like Corvettes. If you're driving a Corvette, you're shrinking violet. Okay.
See, I think there's a continuum here, though. I don't think it's like 100%. I think there's like
I mean, Ron talks about it with a lot of authority. He's got a lot of confidence. Like
it's because Ron's got a Corvette.
I have avoided all the stereotypical small penis things you could purchase because I don't want to be identified with my small penis.
Do you have a lift kit on your truck?
I got a lift kit under this chair.
My golf cart, man.
Hey, Doug, are we recording any of this? Because this is priceless.
I think we should ask the listeners if that qualifies for sex ed with Ron. I don't know if
it
that
does.
qualifies.
Somebody already said, Brock guy already said sex ed with Ron. So
absolutely,
that's a bingo square.
There you go. A cigar boat would be the equivalent of a Corvette.
Mm-hmm.
Big front end out in front.
That's good.
Whoa.
That's good.
Some all day IPA.
All day IPA.
Can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning.
Michigan.
So, well, we got like 10 minutes. So, we should. Well, first, what else do you got? Is there anything that you want to tell any people that are watching right now that obviously the LWCF and Great American Outdoors Act is still something that we need to, like, if you haven't made phone calls yet, make phone calls, right?
Yeah, I think Ron's gonna hold up that like sign again that he like so crafted.
There you go.
Made. Like he doesn't. Yeah, there it is, right there.
202-224-3121. Call there and tell them what state you're in, and they'll connect you with your senators, at least their answering machine, and tell them to support passage of the Take It Land.
Great American Outdoors Act. The Great American Outdoors Act.
EAOC.
Okay, Ted Summers gets the comment of the night right there.
Yeah, that might be a free T-shirt comment right there.
That's the best comment of the night right there. and the best part is, well, the worst part is that Land can't even see it. He can't see.
No, he's on his phone. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you should tell.
I wish.
Land, this guy just wrote, it says, Uncle Ron, scared of horses and expert on cock compensation theory.
By the way, that's like I think if that was the title of a book, Ron, that you wrote, like you would I think you would make $1 million.
For sure. For sure.
I'm gonna get a notebook and stay out in the kennel all night and get that drafted, the first draft.
I did because
I think. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Somebody asked if I poured a beer into a glass, which I did. I thought you were supposed to do that with IPAs. I thought that was the hip thing to do, but I guess I don't know.
Well, we count on you to know what.
You look good doing it,
right?
I guess I was gonna say, I think this Great American Outdoors Act, as much as we laughed about Colin and stuff, it's one of the most important things that you can do.
It is,
and we will not get another chance in our lifetime like this. And I say that they should have made this mandatory funding back when they passed it in '64, and we should have had $900 million a year. But just think about what $900 million could do for all of us a year, in perpetuity. It's and we get to be a part of it right now, right? They will talk about 2020 when we got this done, just like we talk about 1964 when they first passed it, right? It's pretty sweet opportunity. But I think the only other thing I would say that I want to make sure that I say, besides don't listen to Ron's sex advice or his lots of advice probably. Would be I think something that came up earlier, right? That people don't think their voice counts, right? I totally hear you. There's big business. It seems like there's these crazy voices that are out there. How are you going to break through that noise? You absolutely have to be engaged in this process. You absolutely have to be. And all the stuff we've been talking about today, as it concerns public lands. Cheers.
Damn it.
But that all was because of people we know the names of, the Theodore Roosevelts, the Aldo Leopolds, these iconic people in our conservation legacy. But there's thousands of people that we don't know the names of that played a role in that. And that's all of our jobs right now, is to play some kind of role. And whether that's picking up the phone, whether that's belonging to an organization, whether that's showing up in a meeting, we have to be engaged. And so that's what I would leave you with, is this battle cry, right? We're the bodyguards of public land, and without us, they're in big trouble. But with us, I think we're going to be okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now that when they reintroduce the legislation here in North Dakota, drink, because that's a rule. This year, and it's probably going to come out in December again. I'm going to absolutely be hitting you up again because BHA has got such a powerful voice, and you guys do such good work. And you, as the president and CEO of such an organization that hunts over here and spends time over here, you understand the importance of us not bowing to. The Cattlemen's Association is pushing this law, and a bunch of other different organizations. And so I'm going to be asking for you. And I when I sent you the first message to ask you to come on this program, I hope to get more involved with BHA, because you guys are doing some incredible work. You guys are doing great things. And yeah, man, I hope that I hope long live BHA, and I hope that your guys' message, and I hope that you guys keep on doing what you're doing.
Well, thank you so much, and I will say, Cheers to North Dakota. I think is that their buzzword that we have to drink every
Yep,
time. North
yep.
Dakota.
Every time. Yep.
Oh,
Did you see what I did there? Did you see what I did there? Buzzword. Like that's pretty clever.
That is good. Yeah. Yeah.
Not to toot the old horse, but dude, I can't wait for the call. And like, you know, our North Dakota chapter is growing, and like, you know, there's issues. I think one of the things like, and you asked about like this movement, right? Like what is like the latest, like kind of like these attacks, right? Like what have they been? And I will say, this is going to sound weird, but thank goodness for like people galvanizing us, right? Like, cause like we all take these things for granted. And then when we have these threats, we get like coalesced together. We're like, let's go fight, win, right?
Right.
So in this case of like North Dakota, like, is there this opportunity, which I totally think there is to like bring the people together, right? Like you know, they might not be able to fight like the Cattlemen's Association or the stock growers or whoever they are, like with money and kind of influence, but we got the people, man. And if this is like a thing that we can galvanize people around, like, I think we'll be better for it. So, you know, it's totally horrible that it's coming up. It should be kind of one of these things.
It comes up every 2 years. Every 2 years it comes up. And the funniest thing is that there on one side it's the Cattlemen's Association that's pushing it. And I had when I first kind of became aware of how all this kind of shit goes down, I made a call to the Cattlemen's Association. I spoke to the president. We had a great conversation for like an hour. This is before I even had a podcast. This is probably 4 years ago. And we argued, and I brought up all these different points, and I was like, you know, like, and she's like, well, you know, it's kind of about this, it's about that. We had the whole, there was the Dakota Access Pipeline protest, and they were using that as a springboard to kind of push this whole agenda. And like, it was a really good debate. You know, I spoke to her on the phone for like an hour and a half. But she said at the end of the discussion, she literally said, you bring up a lot of good points. I understand where you're coming from, but this is how we feel, and this is how this is what we're going to push. And then this last year, when the legislative cycle came up, or 2 years ago, when the legislative cycle came up, it was the Cattlemen's Association on one side, and it was the North Dakota Commerce on the other. The North Dakota Chamber of Commerce came out against that bill, knowing that it was going to hurt all kinds of small businesses. So, I mean, like, it's going to be a fight, and it's going to come up this year. I guarantee you it's going to come up in December, and it's going to be something that I'm never going to shut up about. I've been hunting here since I was like 8 years old, and it's always been this way. And the fact that I will not accept the argument that, well, every other state is like this. Right. That's not a good enough excuse. So
this is the last state.
It is.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, you know, we only have to lose this fight once. We only have to lose that fight to Shafit once when he wants to sell 3 million acres.
Right.
And the only reason, I mean, as you just said, it comes up every 2 years, and you want to know why? Because somebody wants to take it for themselves. Right? Like that's like there's this privatized. I mean, again, we're talking about private land here, but like, they want to take those traditions away, right? And to me, we got to police ourselves. I mean, there's some bad actors out there that I'm sure they bring up too, right? Like there's somebody that trespassed and like shot some wheel line or like, you know, did something totally stupid, which we need to police ourselves. But holy cow, man, if we lose this in North Dakota, we lose it forever. If we, you know, those 3 million acres get sold that Shafis wanted to do, we lose that. We lose that forever. So this is, unfortunately, this is not something that goes away, right? Like it's something that we got to fight like hell for what we got right now, and then make sure that we got this next generation coming behind us, because like it's going to be the same fight pretty much going forward.
100%. Well, any of you guys have anything else?
Man, you can't see the comments, but somebody wrote, Tawney, BAME 2020, public land and cold beer for all. Apparently, we're on the ticket.
Cheers to that.
Cheers
to that.
I'm totally voting for that ticket.
I didn't make it up.
I mean, the only problem we have, Ron, is these past, right? Like these like gotcha moments. Like there's going to be all these videos that surface after this, you know, like. We just got to make sure that we just keep singing that, you know, that message, like public lands and beer for all, and we're good to go.
Yeah,
that's what attracted me.
That will resonate.
The first time I heard about BHA, I went to a pint night, and I'm like going, they're all a bunch of drinkers. So, I mean, not out of control, but there is a language in this country and in Europe and in a lot of places that camaraderie of having a drink, kind of loosening up a little bit. That is what attracted me to it. It wasn't, like I said, I was that guy that, when I went to South Dakota, I saw brown grass. Oh, there might be pheasants there. I didn't know it was a CRP field. I just saw brown grass. I moved to Michigan. I saw woods that had no boundaries. I didn't know it was public land, And then when I met some of the BHA people here, I was like, just another bunch of people that like to have a beer and a good time and talk. To me, and that's what hunting is about. Some people love it for the dogs. Some people love it for the sunrises. I love it for the people. That's why I do all this stuff. There's something wrong. When people go like, I want to be alone. I want to go up in the mountains and hunt elk for 20 days by myself. I'm like, you're a freaking idiot. You should be with 20 people up there with a campfire and a bunch of buddies. There
might be someplace in between by yourself and 20 people, just to be clear. There might be something like happy medium in between.
Hey, start with 3.
But anyway, that is when I met, it was Jason over here in Michigan, Jason Meekoff.
Yeah.
And along with him and everybody else that came with that package, I went down to Nashville, did a pint night with them. We had one in the works for Shenandoah Valley because there's a lot of JMU people down there, and somebody just wrote me, "Is it still on?" I'm like, "Well, if it's on, But that's where I want people to if we talk about politics, about being partisan, sportsmen, if you can get together, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you were raised or what city you're from. If you can sit down and have a beer together and laugh a little bit, then you'll all get on the same page. You'll all get on this. You're like, there might be a guy that he doesn't think about stream access. He's not a fisherman. But if you all get together, and I'm sorry, sometimes it takes that one beer to crack a little bit of shyness in some people. Fortunately for me, there was no shyness gene. But you get a couple people, a couple beers, and campfire, you'll all get on the same page.
Yeah,
you'll all get on the same page. And that's what I liked about BHA.
Hey, Ron, that's the third blank of our platform is campfires for all as well.
I like that.
Campfires for all.
Campfire. Yeah, beer for all, campfires for all.
Can't lose.
I'm going to tell you that this doesn't have anything to do with anything, but when I was over in Michigan in March, we were sitting down alongside of the Little Manistee River, and we had a campfire. Ron was there, and we were over there for a buddy's funeral, and I took a video sitting on a chair of just a campfire. That is the most popular video I posted in the last 6 months on Instagram. It was just a freaking campfire. It was literally just a video of 45 seconds of a campfire, and everybody's like, "Man, that's what I needed."
That's hardwired
exactly
up in here,
right.
people.
It is. Well, there's something about it that it just everything else ceases to matter.
Yeah.
And you watch you can just. I can stare into a campfire for 10 hours. I really can, and nothing else matters.
I mean, like Nick just said, it's hardwired, right? Like that first time that they were sitting around, they were rubbing sticks together and ooh, they're making all these noises. I don't even know if they had real language back then, but they're rubbing them together. And when they got that fire going, I bet they were telling hunting stories, right? Like they were grunting or whatever they were doing. Sure. They were doing motions, we shot this big, mastodon, whatever. But wow, taking it to the next level. But that's for real though, right? They literally sat around that fire and told stories. They had to.
Yeah.
And so we get to participate that. I think there's this and I'm gonna butcher it, but Sigrid Olsen, who's this famous writer that writes a lot about the boundary waters in northern Minnesota. He wrote something every time you light a campfire and the flames are going up, like, and he says it a lot more eloquently than I can, but like you're joining in the music of all the campfires that have happened before you. You know, like it's just like it's like what you said there, Nick, when that hardwired stuff. Like it's absolutely true. Absolutely true.
Yeah.
This will be a spoiler alert, but one of Nick's proteges wanted me to write an article for Project Upland, and the title of the article I wrote is "Fire Rings and Friendships."
Nice.
It's a good title.
It'll be out in the fall.
That's a good way to end this.
Dude,
So,
hey, nice work on the double F. Nice work on the double F.
That's not the double
beautiful,
F he's used to. I'll tell you right now.
I was
He's used to a different double F.
I was sober when I figured it out.
all right. So everybody, this will be, I know Tyler kind of brought it up earlier this morning, or maybe it was on Instagram, that this will be the last Friday that the Hunters Happy Hour will be broadcasting live. We are going to move to Tuesdays moving forward. We are going to take a bye week next week, so we'll be off next week and returning on Tuesday the 23rd. I think we're going to keep the same time, 8 o'clock.
Yep.
So take a week off, let your livers rest a little bit, build a cool bingo board, and we'll be back. I think we're going to come back with CZ next, right, Nick?
Yep. Got them lined up. Don't lose your tolerance, everybody, though. Keep your tolerance up.
Like, and for those of you guys who are thinking that we're going to have another CZ episode and you guys are like rolling your eyes, there's going to be a big announcement.
Yeah.
So you guys make sure that you come back for that.
Awesome. So don't forget to give us a like and subscribe. And with that, have a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Are we staying on?
I'm staying on.